to a certain degree, people are going to take this out of context, but bro science and looking at this stuff has a place in some weird ways, because if we were to sit there and always wait for evidence-based stuff and always wait for a clinical to come out, then no one would ever test things.
A lot of supplements out there can actually help with people in their athletic performance as well. Beta-alanine, I bring that up because a lot of people like Derek from Plates for Dates, Sean Alajowick, they're saying, probably not going to do much. It's not that great, itchy butthole, all this stuff. And I'm like, this is one of the best supplements in the world that's proven. Well, maybe not, it's hard to prove anything, but it's right there with creatine, caffeine as like the supplement that you should be taking. Now, what are your feelings on beta-alanine? Do you think it's useful? Have you ever experimented with this yourself?
Yeah, no. I like the, I'm kind of weird though. I just like to tingle. Like I like, so like, I don't mind that. Like, so it's like, so, okay, maybe there's a placebo effect with it. So could probably overlay footage of it, but like I literally did a video before of like, hey, if you're making your own at-home pre-workout, it's like, it literally is that. It's like caffeine, creatine, some beta-alanine. If you wanted to use some like citrulline malate just to try to get a little bit more of some volume, is it, if I had to look at a core fundamental, so yeah, is it nebulous? Again, once again, it is, but the beta-alanine, yes, it buffers the lactic acid, which has a good effect, depends on what you're doing, right? Some degrees, like I recommend people like take some time off of beta-alanine because you also still want to reach that. You want to be able to have a higher accumulation of lactate for that signaling device process, but then you also want to be able to make it so that it's buffered so that you can get there at a higher intensity. So from a performance standpoint, beta-alanine may help you just get through that lactate period a little bit more, but then occasionally take it away, just occasionally take it away so that you get that extra burn so that you can have that signaling device property. It's pretty interesting with that. And creatine, I think undeniably is, well, again, can't say that, not undeniably, but in my opinion,
I know what you mean.
It's just like, I think that's one of the best all-around supplements that is out there. And people don't think that creatine has a benefit when it comes down to cardio. It can, because it depends how hard you're pushing it. Your creatine phosphate stores can still kind of replenish to a certain degree, even during moderate aerobic intensity. So let's say you have a really hard push on the bike, and then you go into an aerobic mode for recovery. CP stores can still replenish a little bit there. So and then again with keto, this is like a perfect transition with that. That is like the number one performance supplement that I would recommend people take for keto, is because creatine is operating in the creatine phosphate pathway is operating independently of the glycolytic pathway. So out of all question, like if you are concerned about performance on keto, like at least you can still bet on the fact that creatine is still going to help you in those first 1 to 3 reps, keto or not, because that is operating independently of those other pathways. But beta-alanine, when it comes right back to it, I like the way it makes me feel, because I try not to take a ton of caffeine before I work out, because I feel like if I have too much, more than like 70 to 100 milligrams, if I have more than that, I feel a little bit disconnected from my body. I feel like I could probably do cardio really well, but with lifting, I really like the mind-muscle connection. The beta-alanine kind of gives me a little bit of a tingle and makes me feel like my nervous system is a little bit alive. And maybe that's, again, placebo effect or whatever. But I mean, who doesn't like to tingle a little bit? I don't know.
I mean, let's say it's a placebo effect. Even if it allows you to train harder, it's going to end up with better results. And those results aren't going to be placebo. As far as creatine, I mean, I absolutely think it works, not just for allowing you to push harder, but also for your brain function. I do think that it's going to be beneficial for that. Beta-alanine, it's more of something that I believe builds up in your system over time. So taking off, say you took off 2 weeks, I think it would lower its levels in your body a little bit and perhaps not benefit you as much, but eventually it'll go back down. I think beta-alanine to me is like a no-brainer supplement. It allows you to push that much harder. So if I'm on the bike and I don't take it, instead of taking a minute to do, say, 1 hill, it might take me 1 minute and 1 without it. But if I'm taking it, I can do it in a minute. So regardless if I'm taking it or not, I'm still going all out. I'm still pushing. So whether or not I'm on it or not, I'm still going to get the lactic acid burn, that feeling. It's just going to happen faster with or without it.
Yeah, totally. And it's a good transition. I mean, I think you and I, in some ways we overlap a little bit. We both agree to a certain degree on some aspects of fasted training, but we disagree on others. And that's one of the things I talk about. You're not big on training fasted, but you're okay with cardio being somewhat fasted, right?
So training fasted, for me, I have horrible results. I can't train fasted, and cardio fasted, I think that can be equally as good. as not being fasted, but not better. So for example, if I'm on the bike and I'm riding an hour and I haven't eaten anything, and if I'm a little bit weak from not having eaten and I can't quite push as much, I'm not going to burn as many calories. But if I'm just going at moderate, like miss or less, no problem. There's no effect. If I'm just out going for a ride, if I'm in Mexico and I'm waking up, I often do cardio fasted. I'll just get up and do my cardio and go to breakfast with my girlfriend after. No problem. But if I was in a race and I had to win that race or it was for money, I'm eating because I don't want to take the chance that I don't have that energy from not eating. I'm also going to take a fat burner, pre-workout, like you're saying, with caffeine. And actually right now, because I broke the elbow and I have it surgically reattached. Yeah, it doesn't look the best, but I can't train super hard. So I've actually stopped taking pre-workout. I'm just taking like a pump, like the citrulline, creatine, these things, just no problem. And I'm going to see what it's like to go back on it. So I'm on a caffeine stimulant detox right now. I haven't had caffeine for weeks. So I'm wondering how it's going to actually feel to go back and take pre-workout after having none for a while. And I'm betting it's going to be a doozy.
It's going to be a doozy for sure. Yeah. Cause like on that note, like I'm taking a little bit of a break even from coffee, just do it from time to time, just because I like to, again, do things that are hard. It's hard to cut out coffee. I feel like if it's making my life easier, then maybe I should cut it out for a little bit. Maybe it's something, it's just simply put, and when you come down to, like, you mentioned something with like the mental piece too, like, I think everyone discounts the fact that like doing hard cardio is just good for the brain. Okay. Like periods of hypoxia.
Good for autophagy as well, which is another benefit of intermittent fasting that so many people are getting for the benefits of autophagy. Yes. Like that hard cardio, that's actually good. So
100%.
I don't need to fast because I'm pushing myself so hard on the bike. I'm getting all those benefits in that way for longevity and so on.
I'm glad you said that, because it also, it sort of debunks some of the acceleration towards like the autophagy talk in the fasting world. And trust me, like, I am all about, like, the autophagy research is badass. Like that is some really cool stuff. But I think we also have to remember that autophagy is always occurring in our body. It's not like something that is only for people that fast. And you nailed it. Like the same kind of autophagic flux can occur with cardio that it does with fasting. So the question is okay, if I'm in a fast, during a fast, will I get more autophagy by doing cardio? Not necessarily. It sort of caps out. So you're not necessarily doing cardio for an autophagy benefit during a fast. I mean, cardio is going to give you the autophagy benefit either way, but you're not necessarily getting more. But my take coming from, and this is just interesting, it's not even saying that your way is wrong, with the keto world and the fasting world, I tend to recommend cardio in a fasted state because they're going to liberate at that time. It's not necessarily about the calories in, calories out for me at that point. It's like, how can we liberate more fatty acids to form ketones, particularly in the morning? Hopefully they're doing cardio in the morning, because at that rate, then you're kind of setting the pace for the day. So liberating the fatty acids, whether you're in a deficit or not, can lead to ketogenesis. So it's kind of like, okay, that's a perfect little storm there. One of the things that I really caution people with, and one of the things that I'm very careful with, and I mentioned this in another segment or earlier in this longer segment, is that if you train fasted, you can expect your strength to not be as strong as or great as if you had some food in you. That's normal. Okay, that's normal. And it's okay if you just accept that and you just train like your new relative. It's your new relative. It's all good. But one of the things that I do is 2 or 3 days a week, usually about 2, I will go in and I will train with a little bit of food in my system, usually on a double day. So like if I have some extra time, maybe I did my cardio fasted. So then later in the afternoon, I'll go and train, and I'll actually have an orange or something before my workout. Not because I feel like I need the extra power. It certainly does help. I definitely can squeeze out another rep. It definitely makes a difference, but because it comes back to something that's very important for me as a low carb athlete. As a low carb athlete, I need to make sure that my body still knows how to operate well with glucose coming in from the diet. Because again, I mentioned this before, but that glucose intolerance is a real thing. And there are multiple studies that demonstrate that, like, when you're doing 2-a-day training, like how to fuel properly. So it's a perfect opportunity. I still got my quote unquote fat burning effect by doing my fasted cardio. That's all great. I still liberated ketones. I did all that. But my weight training, let's say I want to have a little orange or something before, then it's essentially forcing that glucose into my cell so my body is still conditioned and knows how to use it properly. It's giving me the best of both worlds. I don't want to be a one-trick pony with keto. I don't want to be a one-trick pony with just carbs. I want it all. Like I want to go for it all. I'm after performance. And I find myself, and maybe you're this way too, as a cardio-oriented person, I have to sometimes stop myself from making my lifting cardio oriented. Like I want to get a good workout in. I always want to get a good workout in. And sometimes I think that comes at the mercy of lifting as heavy or as hard as I could, because maybe my rest periods are too short, or maybe I'm moving around too much because I just like to get my heart rate up because I'm a cardio weirdo. And I find like if I do my cardio first and I get that out of the way, like in the morning, and then like a couple days a week, I go in the gym in the afternoon, I feel like, hey, I already got my rocks off with my cardio. Now I can focus on nice longer rest periods, and I can focus on lifting heavy, and I can have a little bit of carbs before there because I'm not thinking in fat burning mode. I'm thinking in muscle mode. And it just helps me just psychosomatically.
I think you brought up so many subjects here, great things to talk about. For example, if you're burning fat more so on an empty stomach, should you actually be doing cardio on an empty stomach? Well, the research basically says, yeah, you're probably burning more fat if you do cardio on an empty stomach, but after you then eat, you're then burning less fat afterwards. So it's kind of balancing out. Also, with weightlifting or cardio, should you do it first thing in the morning or later in the day? Well, most of the research is going to say that at best, lifting weights can be as good in the morning as later in the day. But for a lot of people, it's going to be better. You're going to be stronger late in their day because you have more chance for hydration. You're going to have a couple meals. You're going to maybe gain a few pounds and you're stronger. So it possibly could be hurting you if you're lifting weights in the morning compared to in the afternoon, but you should still lift whenever you want because that's the best time to lift. And should you be doing weights and cardio at the same time? Probably not if you're trying to maximize both. So where you come in, you do your cardio in the morning, that gets it out of the way. And then later in the day, after you've eaten a few meals, you can go and really push the weights. And at this time, I really think it's important to separate cardio from weights. When I'm in the weight room, it's about building muscle. And when I'm in cardio, I don't care about muscle, I care about cardio. So I separate the two. Yeah. So for me, I don't think it's good to say rest less than a minute between sets. I think it's important to get that rest to, in fact, build up that ATP again, because that's that energy that we need. And if you don't rest long enough, you're going to be lifting a lot lighter weight. So rather than maybe you're benching with 250, if you're only resting 40 seconds, that 250, maybe it's 200. So you're not able to lift as heavy a weight. You can't put as much muscle damage. And then in the end, you're not building as much muscle.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, it's easy because I'm so victim of that because I am just someone that seeks out, like, I just want the hard. I just like, so I still like, I went through a phase for a while where I was really doing a lot of, hybrid style workouts, which would tax me, fry my central nervous system, but I actually wasn't too happy with my body composition results. I mean, again, I understand that I'm in great shape and, in a probably better shape than a lot of people. So I understand that it's whatever. But the point is that I noticed that, okay, well, yeah, because I'm not able to give 100% to either one. I'm like sitting in this gray area. That being said, I found that just for body composition and just for being able to focus, yes, separating cardio, and I always say that, like, clear line of delineation, cardio, weights, two different worlds. Now, what I will do is 1 to 2 days a week, I do still kind of do my hybrid days. But you know what? They're set up that way. They're not my clay mass builders. They're not my foundation. They're like, hey, this is a test of my overall fitness. And again, like with military applications and things that I work with, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's nice to be able to keep up with those guys. It's nice to be able to do that. It's nice to be able to be a general athlete, but I will go back to the root of it. When I'm talking to someone that's doing the basics, yeah, 100% focus on your cardio. I know I tagged you. What actually spawned this call is I tagged Greg and like I started doing like the echelon bike, which is like Peloton bike. And I just realized like, holy crap, like for me, like this is great because like my running game is off a little bit right now because of my back injuries. And I'm also up in Tahoe and we got like 8 feet of snow and it's hard to go out and run. And I'm like, so it's like, man, so I just thought of you and I'm like, it's so nice like to just be able to like focus in, only think about cardio and just like get it done. And then later in the day, I go and I lift and I have a little bit of food in my belly, whether I'm keto or not. And yeah, I do feel pretty good. That doesn't mean that I don't lift in a fasted state too. Like I usually do. And yeah, there's some benefits with keto as far as that's concerned. But for me, I just like how I feel in the morning. I just get too busy and later in the day, my mental game isn't right.
And I just love a challenge and I love cardio and just trying to see my watts go up and just seeing your improvement because my whole life, I mean, I'm 46 now. I got bigger and I got stronger for decades. I was natural for over 20 years training, hit a peak and then got into PDs and again, jumped up and got even bigger. Now I'm 46. I've got all the injuries. I'm not setting powerlifting records anymore, but I have biking to look forward to that I can push yourself and improve on. And so how my training in the gym has changed is I used to do the straight sets, like, 5, 6 sets of bench press, rest 5 minutes and go again. Now I don't have time for that. I'm always working. And so what I do is I do agonist, antagonistic muscle training. So I'll do a set of chest, then I'll do a set of back, and I can go back and forth, kind of like circuit training. And I do have a training book, it's basically how I train now. So I do it a lot different than I used to. Have you ever tried that? Is that how you do it? Do you do that kind of training, like circuit? Because you're not resting very long. But for example, if you rest 40 seconds between sets of the chest, it's just not enough rest. No, if you do chest, back, legs, and you kind of go in a circuit, by the time you get back to chest, it's fresh. So you can kind of combine both worlds that way.
Totally. That's exactly how I think of it. And a lot of times sometimes I'll go back between like an upper lower split. And then a lot of times I like a full body split, just because I feel like, as far as periodization goes, I could I have a couple options. I can go on Monday and fry my chest and not be ready to hit chest again until Monday. And then if you look at how many growth cycles or tension cycles you get on that muscle over the course of the year, in a perfect world, that would be 52 times that I'm frying my chest. Okay. Well, volume is important, but I also feel like if I train full body and I kind of do it in that circuit fashion, then I can come back and I'm still ready to hit it the day later or, every other day. And I feel like I'm getting more consistent touch points on that muscle throughout the course of the year, which in my field, I feel like it's helped me retain muscle better, because I feel like I'm all about keeping tension on the muscle. Like when your muscle's not being used, it's when it's going to atrophy. So I'm all about just kind of cycling through it like that. And yeah, it keeps the heart rate up and like the antagonist muscle groups. So going from chest to back, and that back is a huge muscle. So, you're going to get winded. So I feel like, yes, I'm getting that cardio effect. I had Stan Efferding came out to visit with me. We filmed some stuff a couple of weeks ago, and like his style, he was doing antagonistic and he was still taking like a minute in between. It was perfect. It was like chest, 60 seconds, back, 60 seconds, chest, 60 seconds. And you would think, 60 seconds between opposing muscle groups, you're not going to be that gassed. Yeah. After, 8 minutes of that, I'm pretty gassed,
And speaking with muscle, have you heard of this new supplement called Turkesterone? And if so, what do you think of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Turkesterone, it's like, I started looking into it you can hear my baby crying. You can tell I'm at home, sorry. But it's what is called it's not a typical like steroid hormone kind of thing. It's one of these things, as I have heard about it. I haven't played with it or anything like that. I know it was around 10, 15 years ago. I remember it kind of being talked about, and then it kind of went away, and now it came back again, and everybody's kind of talking about it as sort of the latest and greatest. So I don't have a personal experience with it, but I did a little bit of research on it. What's your take on it?
Well, what's weird is I've heard people saying that they remembered it from like 15 and 20 years ago. And I was obviously heavy into bodybuilding and I can't remember it. But of course, I've done research in it. I saw it's not something that's brand new. It's been around for a long time. They've done studies in this, and it's been shown to work in some people. There's not enough studies, but for me, I'm lucky because I'm actually selling it. And so I have a lot of people buying it, and then they give me their feedback. So I get to see the testimonials from people, because after all, if I got a bunch of feedback saying, well, I bought this and it did nothing, it would look bad for me. So I wouldn't want to sell something where everyone is saying, this stuff doesn't work. It's garbage. And so I actually tried it myself. I put 4 pounds on in a month. And I was on the consistent 140 milligram a week testosterone dose, never changed that, never changed anything else. 4 pounds bigger, not increasing calories, not eating more, not having more body fat. I got faster on the bike. My watts went up. I was stronger in the gym. I felt better, felt bigger, could notice in the mirror. I was like, I look bigger, like in a month. So for me, I was sold. I'm texting my brother and he's like, are you sure it works that much? I'm like, well, Steve, I'm just telling you what's happening. And then he started looking, he's always reading comments from people. He's like, man, so many people are saying it works. And so after all that evidence, I'm like, I think it works. I think it really works. And of course, everything's on a spectrum. Some people are going to get better results than others. But for me, if you're natural and you're looking for something that probably doesn't have side effects, this is the thing to try. Yeah, no, I'd be willing to try it for sure, because I don't know if people fully understand like turkesterone. It sounds like it's this crazy anabolic. It's what's called an ectosteroid, which is a different classification. So it's not binding to any kind of traditional steroid receptor in the body. It's not influencing sex hormone binding globulin. It's not influencing your hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. It's not doing any of that. It's operating in an independent pathway. And that's where, some of the people are coming in and saying, hey, we don't know if this works because there's no mechanistic data. Okay. The hard part is when
mechanistic data, mechanistic studies are difficult to begin with. Okay, that's what's tough. So what you normally have to do is you have to take an observational study. Here's X group of people or X group of rodents, and here's what happened as an observation. And then you sort of overlay that with a mechanistic study and kind of determine, oh, well, here's the potential or proposed mechanism. What's lacking is there's observational studies. Like we've seen some stuff in rodents, not really a whole lot of stuff. It's kind of, again, weird with the human stuff. There's some stuff where it's like inhibiting leucine, but still triggering some muscle growth, which is interesting. So the mechanism is just out there, like no one really knows what's potentially happening here. So it comes right back to like, if it's working for people, and again, could it potentially be placebo? Maybe, but I had to do kind of a quick search. I knew we were going to talk about this. So I looked and people recently are saying that it's working really well. So then it kind of begs the question, if it's been around for 15, 20 years, then why was it not popular then? Well, the same kind of reason that other things that were popular then are more popular now. We are in an era now of social media where things can go viral more, right? Like, so if someone's in a bodybuilding dungeon and is saying, I'm taking Turkesterone and it's working, and you're telling me, oh, that's coming from a freaking bug exoskeleton, or that's coming, like, screw that, I'm going to go take this instead. That word of mouth, that's going to stop there. It might go email some friends. Now it's like, hey, I gained 4 pounds, talking about it on Instagram, it's going to go viral. So it's not necessarily fair to say that it's not going to, that it doesn't work just because it didn't work 15 years ago. We don't know if it worked or not 15 years ago, because maybe not enough people were talking about it, because we'd have all had to kind of go through like sort of the, not going to say black market, but almost like the underground, whereas now it's just wide open. So I'm a big evidence-based guy, and that doesn't mean that I won't put something in my body that I want to test out, right? I obviously look at things, what are going to be the concerns, what are things that I should look at. All I can say is, like, people are talking about it, people are having interesting results with it. So I'm not here to rain on it. I think that ectosteroids, basically what they do is, like, in a plant, they can help with like the shedding. Like, so like a plant help shed some of the skin, or in a bug, they help with kind of like shedding the exoskeleton and stuff like that, which means that it's triggering some kind of an mTOR effect at some degree that's causing that to shed off and causing new growth. That doesn't mean that it's going to bind to a muscle cell the same way, but maybe it's triggering some kind of response. It's interesting. I think there needs to be some more evidence on it. Like, if people are going to start talking about it more and people are going to use it more, then it'd be nice to see some more research come out on it. It's just, the research is just pretty bleak, but that doesn't mean just because something has been sitting there dormant that we haven't talked about for a long time, and there's not, to a certain degree, people are going to take this out of context, but bro science and looking at this stuff has a place in some weird ways, because if we were to sit there and always wait for evidence-based stuff and always wait for a clinical to come out, then no one would ever test things. And that's actually what I do kind of appreciate about the bodybuilding community in general and stuff, is they're kind of willing to experiment a little bit. And then usually the clinicals kind of come a little bit later. So if we only root ourselves in what's been fundamentally like layered off, then we're like segmenting ourselves away from what is to be discovered.
You're actually the first person to explain was a good argument, was like, if this was around 20 years ago and it didn't take off, then it probably doesn't work. And you're basically the first person to ever explain that. It's like, well, there wasn't social media back then. It wasn't so easy to explain things. I didn't hear about it. So if I never heard about it 20 years ago, well, how did everyone? You had your little bodybuilding magazines. Not everyone got those. Nowadays, social media, everyone can kind of instantly in one day find out about something. And these studies, they don't come until people demand them. If enough people want research on turkesterone, eventually somebody's going to say, it's worth researching. It took a while for probably, creatine, beta-alanine. That has been around for a long time. I did not know 10 years ago that beta-alanine was a thing. 5 years ago, I didn't know beta-alanine was some magic supplement. Well, not that it's magic, but that it actually can work. But now I know, because I've researched it now. So just because it didn't work, or people didn't prove that it worked 20 years ago, doesn't mean that it's not effective today.
No,
so
totally. The other one that's interesting, kind of in the herbal world, is that, Tongkat Ali, the long jack, which is interesting because, Dr. Andrew Huberman, who I really respect, he's a great guy, was on Joe Rogan, and he talked about it. That's how some people would come to me and be like, Thomas, can you talk about this stuff? Like, heck, I'll take it. Like, whatever, I'll take it. See what it does. I noticed pretty quick, I lost sleep. My sleep got disrupted. And this is, again, other people have said they feel great on. My sleep got disrupted. So I don't know what's going on, which I'm very precious. I'm like protective of my sleep with my 2 small kids. I'm like, sleep is it's a gem. I need it. I can't have anything messing with it. So that was kind of a big thing for me. But you know what I noticed, which is crazy? My hair started like thinning. I started having clumps of hair coming out, which is interesting because there's not a lot of evidence surrounding long Jack and like the whole like dihydrotestosterone DHT conversion, but it would make sense if it's acting upon those different pathways. Because I don't know, like it's definitely doing something. Like there's some evidence there with how it's affecting, sex hormone binding globulin, with how it's affecting luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, that whole feedback. Have you experimented with it?
I've never personally taken it except for right now, which is it's part of my supplement I'm working on. It's harder than last time. Literally to get you harder than last time in the bedroom. So I got that. So I just started like 2 days ago, but anyway, I haven't taken it a long enough time to notice, but I remember in Andrew's video, he mentioned that it could go up, increase your testosterone levels 100 to 200 points on nanograms per deciliter. If so, that's very significant. Not like the 10 points or what Tribulus might do. Yeah. These are so insignificant, probably not going to make any difference. But if we're talking about 100 to 200 points increase in nanograms per deciliter for your total test, that is a significant change. So I think it looks promising.
It does. It's cool. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea just because like it messed up my sleep and I had issues with the hair. Who knows, right? Like I also had other things going on. So I'm context, right? I've also, sit in a sauna at an exceptionally high temperature and I wasn't wearing my sauna cap that I usually wear. That could have literally been what was causing my hair to dry out and not like clumps of it falling out, but enough for me to notice like, that's weird. And then I stopped taking it. At the same time, I also went up to Tahoe away from my sauna and my hair's not doing that anymore. So it could be one, or it could be the other. I can't point fingers at it. The sleep thing, maybe it's an adjustment period. The thing I think I like the most about the Tongkat Ali is that it has like sort of a, within itself, an anti-estrogen property. Now, I don't know how this is working, but when they look at the data with it, they're saying, okay, there's actually an anti-estrogen effect, which is like really cool. So you're having this sex hormone binding globulin pathway, you're having the LH FSH pathway, and then you're also having an anti-aromatase effect. Like, okay, like it almost sounds too good to be true. It really does almost sound too good to be true. But
some people can benefit from that. For me, like where my estrogen levels are actually fairly low, it wouldn't be something I'd be personally looking for. But yeah, it depends on everything. Like if some people are sensitive, even with PEDs, like if I take testosterone, I could get gynecomastia, but other people could take the same dose as me and not have a problem.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Yeah, that's definitely. It's interesting. Yeah, cardio definitely squashes the estrogen. That's what's kind of interesting. And I mean, this would be a whole separate piece of content in its own. But people think that like estrogen needs to be in the toilet. If your estrogen is super low, you're going to feel brittle and feel terrible.
It's not good.
So,
no.
Yeah, people definitely like. I mean, it's like, oh, so I want my testosterone high, I want my estrogen low. No, you want them in balance because your estrogen is actually going to do a lot of good things as far as joint protection, as far as making so. But yeah, I mean, it seems like I don't know. And I trust Huberman. Like I feel like he's a. He's got some good, he's well back.
He's done a lot of research. Yeah, I actually asked him to be on the podcast. He said, sure. And then I keep writing him and he's not writing me back. So maybe I'll get him on. Maybe I won't. He's probably busy.
Will, he lives close by to me, like, cause I split time between Tahoe and Carmel. And like, he's up at Stanford and Palo Alto, which is only like an hour north of me. And so I've texted with him and like, he will sometimes like, he'll be like, hey, let's do it. Let's get, cause he's supposed to come on my channel too. Yeah. And he'll like disappear for 2 weeks. Then he'll text me back and be like, hey, let's make it happen. I think he's just a busy dude.
Yeah. And top of being busy, like, I mean, I don't know how many messages you get, but like you can't read all your DMs, even emails. When I write email, like, it's like, it just gets missed sometimes. So I'm hoping you'll read it. Andrew, if you're watching, get in touch with me. I'm waiting for that interview.
And let's make it happen on my channel too, man.
There you go. Yeah.